You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
I didn't think the pain from the shingles rash would affect simple, everyday tasks like bathing, getting dressed, or even walking around. I was wrong. Though not everyone at risk will develop it, 99% of people over the age of 50 already have the virus that causes shingles, and it could reactivate at any time. I developed it, and the blistering rash lasted for weeks. Don't learn the hard way, like I did. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today. Sponsored by GSK.
Grown-ups, if there's a child in your life who is interested in, curious about, or fascinated by people and places from history, then my podcast, The Past and the Curious, might just be a hit in your home. From the invention of microscopes to world-traveling dogs to fashions of the 1890s, gold rush ghost towns, and audiences going wild for walking competitions, we've got a little bit of it all. Hosted by children's author and museum educator Mick Sullivan, that's me, the show is fun, funny, engaging, honest, and beloved by kids and parents alike. Find The Past and the Curious at all the usual podcast places.
This episode is brought to you by our Patreon members. Thank you so much.
Join our Patreon for extra episodes, interviews, extra content, and to help support the podcast and help us continue to do the work we do.
Go to patreon.com/ancienthistoryfangirl to learn more.
What if horny dragon?
What if yes, please?
I'm Jenny Williamson.
And I'm Jen McMenemy.
And this is Ancient History Fangirl. Today, as part of our Ancient History Fangirl Book Club, we are so thrilled to welcome the dynamic duo of Donna Herren and Bree Bridges, writing under the bestselling pseudonym of Kit Rocha. They are best known for the gritty dystopian Beyond series, featuring queer romances, wide shoe sexiness, badass mercenary heroines, and an extra dash of kink, including the spin-off Mercenary Librarian series, which, good lord, you had me at Mercenary Librarians. I need a cold shower now, excuse me. Anyway, hi, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
So how did you both get interested in writing smut? What is your smutty origin story?
We met each other while writing sexy fanfic. This is like the true origin story many years ago. Yeah, actually, our origin story is that Donna wrote a fic and people were giving her crap about writing it. What'd you write it in first person point of view?
It was in first person present, which I feel is so ubiquitous in fanfic now, but for some reason when I did it, it was a crime.
Yeah. And so I started defending her because I had really liked the story, and that is how we met in the year 2000. Ancient history.
Ancient history.
Add that to, like, one of the many things people could get really upset about that you would not see coming.
I did not see it coming, that's for sure. I was like, that's what you're going, that's why you don't like it? Okay, sure. But you understand that doesn't make it wrong, right?
All the point of views are good point of views. It just depends on the story you're telling.
No, it's a stylistic choice. It's okay.
Yeah. I feel like that's one of those things where, I don't know, man, some people need a refresher. It's like there's a difference between something is bad and something is not for me, you know? I mean, there are lots of things in the world that are just, they're not for me, you know? But I celebrate that they exist because maybe they're for someone else, you know? Not everything has to be for me.
And I also kind of feel like I'm not here to yuck someone else's yum.
Yeah. I'm going to call something out if it's, like, problematic. I'm going to be like, really? But, you know, I mean, like, there are plenty of things. There's a wide chasm between, like, needs to be commented on and just not for me. You know, it's a spectrum.
So how did you guys get started writing together, and what's your process for that? And I'm so curious about this as someone who also does this very large creative venture with a partner.
We haven't killed each other yet, but it's always hanging on by a string.
It's always a close thing, though, isn't it?
When you said you guys met in 2000, I was like, I think that's the year Jenny and I met as well.
We actually, because we were both writing fanfic, we actually started like plotting together and like brainstorming and stuff, and just sort of like doing that whole dedicated crit partner kind of, you know, like critique situation. I don't know. What is the answer to this question, Bree? I don't remember.
I mean, I feel like the big problem was that neither of us, I mean, we both have our little neurodivergent brains, and I am very ADHD.
Oh, preach.
Neither of us could really sustain writing something longer by ourselves because it would peter out. We'd get bored. We'd start it and then go do something else. And so it's the sort of thing where we finally were like, well, why don't we just try writing together? And we experimented with a few different types. And what we ended up doing, it's sort of strange because I know, having done many panels with other co-writers over the years, there's lots of different ways. And there's the broad, well, I'm going to write a chapter and then you're going to write a chapter sort of thing. And we're kind of the opposite. We split up the characters. It's almost like, because we also have like a tabletop gaming background. And I think that we sort of do this thing where we split up the characters. And so each of us is sort of responsible for holding them in our head. And then we literally just write together, like in a Google Doc. Whoever's got the point of view will tend to do more because they have to do the narrative and they have to filter things through their character's perspective. But like, I will write all the dialogue for my characters. I'll just put it in the Google Doc, and then we have a little system where when we're done writing, we put an asterisk and then the other person has to go.
Do you like extensively plot the book out before you start that writing process? Like, is there a big outline that you're following so you know that like when you get tagged in where you're supposed to move things along to?
What we usually do is, because contrary to what some people think, we do actually have two different brains.
You mean you're not the same person? Because the amount of times Jenny and I have been like, people treat us like we're the same person. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a frequent thing.
Right, exactly. We have a lot of communication. Like, there's a lot of like discussion of, like, what are we trying to do with this, particular book, these particular characters, where are we trying to go with the story? And like, by the time we get to the point where we're actually doing what most people would rationally consider plotting, we have these wish lists almost of like, I would like to put this in there, or this has to go in there. And so we have this sort of like loose collection of things. And then our job is to kind of shepherd them all into some semblance of order so that we can get as much stuff as possible that we wanted to do into it. And so what we kind of do once we actually start writing is that we'll plot several scenes ahead. I think of it kind of like having your high beams on when you're driving at night. It's like, you can just see a little bit farther ahead of you. And so, you know where you're going. You don't want to be driving at night with no lights on. So, lately we've actually started extending that, applying it to like the scenes that we're writing. So we'll do something that's Courtney Milan calls it wireframing, where you basically will just like make these very extensive notes. It's not really an outline. It's kind of like a cross between an outline and like a stream of consciousness, and then where we'll do that like, with a scene. And so then we know exactly where we're going within that scene even. So that kind of prevents, I guess, like wandering and like not getting to the point that we need to make, because as we both kind of get older, it does get a little bit more difficult to kind of like hold that in your head. And so, I don't know, tangents are pretty, they're nice, they're shiny, but they don't always get you where you need to go. So we're trying to be a little more structured. We used to just sort of like wing it. We would just absolutely get in there and go ham, and we're like, let's see where this goes. But, sometimes the answer was nowhere. And I don't know, my time is precious and I like sleep. So.
It's so different because it took me like 8 years to write my first novel, the one that's coming out. And so I now have to write the second one within a year. So it's such a different process for me. It requires so much advanced planning. Like, I don't have time to just sit down and play around and do that for ages,
Yeah, that's kind of the thing.
Yeah. And I do feel like it's not a coincidence, because we worked with e-publishers in the beginning, like the early romance e-publishers who were ebook exclusive. And then as self-publishing became more of an option, we jumped to doing that because we sort of loved the idea of getting to like control everything and do our own covers and format books. And, we were very successful at self-publishing. Like we made a lot of money and we had a lot of fun, but we sort of got tired. Doing all of it is exhausting. And so when we switched to traditional publishing, that is sort of when we started getting more structured too, because we suddenly had those contracts with deadlines that somebody else needed us to hand a book in.
Because I don't know how many people are like really, really think about it. But I think they have this vision of like, well, the book gets done when it gets done and the author is going to, like be the driver of that process. But it's like, if you wing past the deadline, it's not just your editor is like, oh, I can't edit the book right now. Like there are layers of people after that. Like it can't go into production. And so things go onto the production schedule like 18 months in advance, I mean, like if you blow a deadline, you might literally not have a book come out until like 2 years after it was initially planned, just because, they can't just be like, okay, well, get it to me ASAP. It's like you have essentially disrupted the entire process now. And they have to, work you back in whenever and wherever they can. And so that is really a big thing. It's like, you don't want to mess with that. You don't want to crash that many balls out of the air, better just to get it done.
I mean, that's a very considerate opinion. I came from a publishing background, traditional publishing. I worked in the UK before I went freelance. And the amount of times that authors would miss their deadlines and everything would then just get all out of whack. Like, it happened a lot. And, one of the things you have to do is also be quite responsive as a publisher and jump in and crash certain books into schedules to either fit a book that didn't make it, that you were sort of like counting on for your budget for that year, or you just get something that, came in really late and you're like, okay, well, we got to make this work now. We don't have a choice. So yeah, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Like publishing is a really fascinating industry, and they work really hard. I know a lot of times publishers don't get a lot of nice things said about them. So it's nice to hear, an author saying like, look, this is what happens when we turn things in late. And of course, publishers they know life happens and they try to be as understanding as they can be. But eventually when it doesn't come in like a week or 2 or 3 later, it becomes a problem.
There are times you can't help. Like, several years ago, I had like a cancer diagnosis. We were like hella late on one of the Mercenary Librarians books because, I kind of got a little cancer.
And then we both got COVID because the pandemic definitely messed up publishing on every level.
Also probably has something to do with that whole brain thing where we can't keep stuff in our heads very well anymore.
I hope your publishers were good at supporting you and giving you the time you needed to get everything done.
Oh, Tor was fabulous. Like Claire Eddy, our editor at Tor, she was so great about the whole thing. She was like, you take care of you and don't worry about us, I mean, she was so great. She's a lovely, lovely person, and she really is so terrific. And I mean, I feel like that's something that, when you have like creative partnerships, that's sort of like built in, or should be, hopefully, is that, you're kind of accustomed to thinking that way anyway, because it's not just, your butt on the line with stuff. And it's not just, your sense of well-being when things are going bad. You kind of got to do check-ins. You've got to, and that extends, to our entire publishing family.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your publishing journey? Because you mentioned starting with ebook publishers, and I know you guys were indie for a long time.
I loved it. I honestly did. I have a computer science background, but I was also raised by an artist. So I have like a lot of different skill sets that really came into play there. I could format our books. I could program our websites. I could design our covers. And I don't necessarily recommend that you design your own covers if you don't have some sort of art background, because that can go badly.
I can literally just about make some decent, passable, almost good graphics in Canva. There is no way I could imagine designing covers. That is an art into itself.
It really is. And like, I have nothing but respect for cover artists because, there's a secret language in it. There's like fonts that convey certain things. There are trends that you have to be on top of. And I've had to redesign some of our covers over the years because the trend shifted. 50 Shades of Grey came in and really changed how we looked at erotic covers and Right now we're in the middle of the illustrated romance revolution. So, there's just lots of different things going on there. But it gave us the chance to pivot. We could decide, hey, I think that we need a new set of covers to capitalize on this. And a publisher may not be like, well, let's invest $2,000 in putting new covers on all of your books right now, and then all the work that goes with that. But we could do it, and we could decide to publish whatever we wanted, which was another thing. We actually had the option. Like, we weren't indie because we didn't have options. Agents and editors, because we were successful, were coming to us fairly often saying, hey, you're doing great at this. Would you like to consider New York? And the problem was they kept saying, do you want to write something marketable for New York? Because what we were publishing was this queer, polyamorous, kinky, bootlegger, sci-fi romance thing. And they were like, well, that's nice, but we don't know how to sell that.
Yeah, they're like, we can't sell that. Would you like to write something that we can sell? And we were like, frankly, we don't know how to write something that you can sell. So, we are kind of not on the same track there.
It's wild because I feel like the stuff that you write is quite on trend right now.
Right now.
It is. The trends just sort of popped up and suddenly we were like right in the middle of it. And I was like, well, that's nice. Thank you.
Yeah, I had no idea that for a long time what I actually wanted to write was romantasy.
Well, I mean, here's the thing is that, like, people tend to think of, what is popularly being called romantasy now as being something new. It's not. It's been around forever. They've just called it different things, historical fantasy with romantic elements, romantic fantasy, fantasy romance. It's just like, it's had so many names. And I feel like there are so many people who are like, oh, so this is something new. It's not new. There are so many, ladies especially, who've been doing this for a really long time and are really, really great at it. And, nothing new under the sun, man.
But publishers now recognize it.
Right. Well, that's the thing, isn't it?
And not just publishers, booksellers recognize it too, because there is a secret alchemy. There has to be, booksellers have to know where to put things as well. Like, if you want to be out in the front of bookstores, they have to know where your book sits. So it's a secret chemistry between author and publisher and booksellers. And, what's really interesting is I remember doing a lot of panels when I was in publishing about people asking what should I be writing? Should I be writing for trends? And the advice is always don't write for trends. By the time you get on that trend, it may be over. Write what you want to write. If what you happen to enjoy writing is now on trend, that's great. If it's not on trend, the trend will come back, as we've seen.
When we started publishing in about 2008, and paranormal romance was the thing. We had Laurel K. Hamilton and Kristen Fian and the True Blood, Charlene Harris, they had sort of opened this paranormal romance that was sort of monster horror trope derived. And it was all that sold, to the point that I remember Smart Bitches, Trashy Books, the website, they were doing a Save the Contemporary campaign because contemporary romance was dead.
Yes, I remember.
It's just hilarious now.
50 Shades of Grey rose, and it's just billionaires. And then the contemporary just came roaring back. Paranormal romance, you can't sell one to New York right now if you're not an Nalini Singh or Alona Andrews, basically.
I think if you even tried right now, they would be like, can we make this a little more fantasy?
I've definitely read some stuff more recently that could have probably passed as paranormal back then, but now is being marketed as urban fantasy romance.
Well, some of the modern myth retellings, I think, could have very happily been a paranormal, 15 years ago. Not the literary ones, but the smutty ones.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an Enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Your planet is now marked for death.
Marvel Studios' The Fantastic Four: First Steps is now streaming on Disney+.
We will protect you.
As a family.
Light him up, Johnny!
Marvel's first family is certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
That is fantastic.
And critics say it's one of the best superhero movies of all time.
Oh!
Marvel Studios' The Fantastic Four: First Steps, now streaming on Disney+. Rated PG-13.
What time is it, Ben? It's clobber time!
Throughout history, royals across the world were notorious for incest. They married their own relatives in order to consolidate power and keep their blood blue. But they were oblivious to the havoc all this inbreeding was having on the health of their offspring. From Egyptian pharaohs marrying their own sisters to the Habsburgs' notoriously oversized lower jaws. I explore the most shocking incestuous relationships and tragically inbred individuals in royal history. And that's just episode 1. On the History Tea Time podcast, I profile remarkable queens and LGBTQ+ royals, explore royal family trees, and delve into women's medical history and other fascinating topics. I'm Lindsay Holiday, and I'm spilling the tea on history. Join me every Tuesday for new episodes of the History Tea Time podcast, wherever fine podcasts are enjoyed.
I just recently read what I think is your most recent book, but please correct me if I'm wrong, Consort of Fire. And I picked this one up when I went to the Rip Bodice in Brooklyn because assassin heroine. I bought one that was a queer assassin heroine story and one that was a straight assassin heroine story. And I absolutely love this trope so much. And I don't know what it is about it that just, I will buy your book if there's an assassin heroine in it. And I just want to bring this to you guys. Like, what is it about assassin heroines that we love so much?
It's a great question. I mean, I also love them so much, clearly. And I think that there's maybe a little bit, like, especially in romance. I mean, romance has had, like, badass women for every definition of badass for a long time. But I do think that, like, the assassins have been... That's been like a thing that the heroes usually get to be the assassins. And sometimes it's just fun. I think we've got a little bit of maybe righteous anger in our souls right now, some women. And we just want the fantasy that we can go stab our enemies or rip out their hearts or whatever we have to do. Because it's an angry time.
I hear you on that.
Or decide not to if that's what we, choose.
Absolutely.
I mean, I like the idea, and I think that there's a real point here that, like, the modern condition is informing this trope a little bit.
Yeah, it's also like there's a hidden power element, right? Like, a lot of times these heroines go in and they look unassuming, but they have this hidden danger to them. And that's a nice fantasy for modern women who sometimes feel like they've had some of their power taken away.
Yeah, I think in Consort of Fire, we're really kind of like, why don't we just take this trope and do kind of like both prongs of it? Because there's this lady is clearly very dangerous and would stab you in the face. And then there's you would not notice that this lady is going to stab you in the face. So like with Zanya and Sashi, there's sort of like one of each of those. There's, they're both very like, scary, dangerous people, but you aren't necessarily going to clock them the same way. So
exactly. That was another very seductive thing about your book, is that we have a lady assassin who's kind of the physically dangerous lady assassin, and then we have the seductive lady assassin.
There's the one who, I don't know, she might not kill you, but she could ruin your life. So, that's part of it. That's part of the trope. Part of the fantasy, too, is that bringing it all to bear. There's something to be said for I guess, like the dangerous liaison sort of, vibe with everything has like double and triple entendres, and there are like multiple layers going on to every interaction. And then there's something attractive about, oh, okay, you're a problem. I'm stabbing you in the face. So, you get to like, combine all of that. That to me is like, I tend to, which is hilarious because there are 15 layers to every interaction character. Sashi is mine. But I tend to gravitate more toward the direct action, stab you in the face characters. And Zanya is not mine.
And I actually tend to be the let's politically manipulate this situation through 17 layer. And I've just got the Lady Rage, stabby face Zanya. She is mine. So
we were sort of like pushing ourselves, sort of like stretching a bit within what we do, because I do not think like just naturally kind of, it doesn't come naturally to me having to try to put myself in the headspace of a character who is like manipulating every situation, like for better or for worse. So that was a bit a challenge for me to do that. And I think that it was a bit of a challenge for Bree to like, not do that in the headspace of a character, because that, like she said, that does tend to be like, more of like what she gravitates toward. And it was just, everything about this book was just like seeing what we could do within the boundaries of our abilities, and also what we could do with this particular kind of setup, like where could we take it? What could we explore? What kinds of dynamics, what can we do that feels like new and fresh and different in something that is not new. Like, this is very not new.
Yeah, this trope actually, like the original, like the little heart of it is the long-standing, and I have been reading these since I was like 15, where somebody tries to subvert the princess gets sacrificed to the dragon thing. Like, I think the first one I read, like, that was a subversion of it was like maybe a Mercedes Lackey short story, like I read in the 90s. Because, it's something that we have always loved, this idea that we're going to take power back from this myth that, you have to sacrifice princesses to dragons, or that dragons, are going to devour the princess. I will buy any book that says the princess is supposed to get sacrificed to the dragon, but she's coming for him.
That is a really ancient trope. Yeah, I mean, maybe this is a subversion of it because it's the Theseus thing, Jen, with the Minotaur, right? But it's not sexy.
Well, no, because the woman figures it all out for him, and he's just the fucking worst fucking Theseus. Sorry. Jenny's just like, let me just push that little button there that's just going to make you feel rage. Theseus.
Sorry.
Look, there's so many dudes from classic antiquity deserve to be like, fuck that guy.
This is like half our podcast is discussing and trashing such dudes. So, Consort of Fire asks the perennial question that I think we've all asked, which is, what if horny dragon?
Yes.
I saw this in the back of your book and I just laughed out loud. And I was just like, we have got to get these two on.
I write increasingly unhinged acknowledgments like every book. I have a lot of fun doing that. But really, that is how we pitched it. I mean, basically, like, what if horny dragon?
What if, yes, please?
What if, read now?
So, your hero in Consort of Fire is, I guess you could call that, like, trope like a dragon shifter, right? And those are also kind of really having a moment right now. We just had Elizabeth May on, who also has a dragon shifter novel, To Cage a God, out. What is it, do you think, about dragons that we're finding so sexy right now? And is there something like Assassin Heroines where there's just kind of something in the air right now that is just making us feel this?
I think the thing about, I mean, is this too crass? But monster fucking's really having a moment.
It's not too crass at all.
All right, just checking. Absolutely how we pitched this to our editor. It's like, we definitely were in, like, or what was it that Lauren had asked us?
She said, can you do monster fucking but kind of commercial? Like, and we were like, we were born to do monster fucking but kind of commercial.
Like, commercial monster fucking. We were born for this. I think that it's all the same as when you were talking about how paranormal romance used to be like a big thing. I think it's all the same sort of intensity of emotion. It's like the big characters, the big feelings, the big stakes. And I think that, this is just kind of like a really handy current expression. Dragons are hot. I mean, like, you know, and this is coming from someone who has a mild to moderate reptile phobia. They're just hot, you know? I mean, but, you know, I mean, like, there are other monsters who are hot too. And I feel like that's just, you know, they're hot and they're cool. There's something so painfully cool about dragons. Like, even the ones that are, like, horrific in, like, you know, classic stories and stuff, and, like, there's nothing sexy about them, you're still like, I want to hang out and have a beer with that dude, you know, because, like, they're very cool, you know? They're just ridiculously cool.
They're apex predators, right? You know, like, they are the top of the, you can't get more top of the food chain than a dragon.
Yeah, it's kind of like the same, you know, deal as, like, wolves and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, you know, like, that's just, yeah, like, lions. Are you kidding me? You know, I mean, they're all very, like, sea monsters. I'm throwing that one in there for Bree.
We may be working on a spin-off duology right now with a kraken. So
I love me some krakens.
Sexy kraken. I feel like I haven't seen a kraken shifter.
There are some out there. I'm pretty sure Katie Robert did one.
Katie Robert? Yeah.
Oh, that does not shock me.
Yeah, and she actually messaged me, I'm pretty sure, like, after reading the book, going, Kraken spinoff? And I was like, you know, Kraken spinoff.
What if Horny Kraken?
What if Horny Kraken? Yeah.
Exactly. I think that the Game of Thrones of it all also brought dragons back, like, into a really prominent pop culture thing, even with people who might not be fantasy fans. Just like the visuals. We have had so many dragon visuals going around. And yeah, I think that Fourth Wing hit at a really good time to, like, bring a lot of people who weren't necessarily fantasy readers. It's such a good gateway book, I think, because it has a lot of tropes that fantasy readers are pretty familiar with. But if you haven't seen them before, it's got, like, the smorgasbord of, like, the best hits of, like, dragon fantasy tropes, you know? So it's, of course it's blowing people's minds.
I haven't read Fourth Wing yet. I really do need to read it, but isn't it also like a dragon riding boarding school? So you have this sort of, like, fantasy boarding school trope?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you could pitch it as a sort of Dragon Riders of Pern, like, old school thing, plus Hogwarts if J.K. Rowling hadn't gone off the rails bigotry. Like, that sort of intersection, which is why I think that it's really hitting hard for a lot of people.
Pele, Hawaiian goddess of volcanoes, fire, and rebirth.
Maeve, Celtic warrior queen and nemesis of heroes.
Kiyohime, Japanese fire-breathing snake demon.
Pesta, Norwegian spirit of the Black Death. Our book, Women of Myth, is a fascinating look at women and femme characters in world mythology, including goddesses, heroines, and monsters. With captivating illustrations by Ringo Award-nominated artist Sarah Richard, it's the perfect gift for the mythology lover in your life, including yourself.
Find Women of Myth wherever books are sold.
Refreshing wild cherry cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
Did you know only 6% of people are getting enough fiber? That's why Quaker created Fiber February, a month-long movement to show your gut a little more love. It's like dry January, only easier and more delicious. Quaker has over 100 delicious options that are a good source of fiber. So go buy Quaker Oats today and join the Fiber February movement for a healthy gut.
So is there any real-world history or mythology that you've drawn on when writing Consort of Fire?
Oh, so much of it. So much of it. One of the things that we really wanted to do is kind of, because here's the thing. When you are looking at the basics, like the basic framework of how mythologies develop, there are so many similarities across, like, cultures and across time. And so we wanted to hit some of, like, the big highlights, you know? You've got, like, your basic, like, earth elements, like Ash, the hero of Consort and Fire, is basically like, earth and fire. Like these are his domain, right? And we wanted to like do, like we've got water and wind. We have the concept of basically like the hunter. We've got, the concept of the spirit of the forest, the animals and the danger represented by the wilderness. We have a fertility god who is like all encompassing. Like the lover is not just like the concept of romantic or sexual love. He is that, but I don't think we do it like in the first book, but at some point he's referred to like the god of all things that grow. So, we wanted to play with some of what I would call like, the big hits, but do them in like maybe like a new way or a different way or just our own way. Like the huntress, the god of like, the hunt and all things predatory, basically. She is also the god of knowledge and of military strategy. Like these are the things that she's good at. In a weird way, we don't have a discrete like god of mercy, but it's kind of her. She is all of these things. And I feel like this was what we wanted to do. The big things in new ways. And so we kind of, have a muddle of, oh, I would not have expected these two concepts to go together, but they do. They do because the entire basis of our mythology system is belief. And so along with that, we have this kind of like metatextual commentary where in a very real way, they can gain or lose power along with the ebb and flow of people's belief in them.
I love that so much. My dad was he was on a submarine, so he was a sailor. And you talk about how superstitious fishermen and sailors are. I'm like, it's really true. Like even now I look out, I'm like, what color is the sky at morn or at night? There is a real belief when you're sort of facing those big, wide unknowns that kind of does call to those superstitions. And it makes a lot of sense which gods keep their power, which gods are like perennially powerful because of that worship. Like I'm working on a project as well. It's a myth retelling, and one of my characters it's a Dionysus and Ariadne story is Hades. And I was saying to Jenny, like over the millennia, certain gods' powers like wane and fall, but Hades never does because there was always the dead. So like I get what you mean as far as that goes. And I thought that was really, really smart. And I love the idea of like sort of new gods being called in from the dreaming into the world, the amount of belief that would take.
It was a way where we wanted to reflect what happens. It's so funny because I remember at one point in time, there was somebody who was doing kind of like a textual analysis of how Marvel has handled the Norse pantheon, specifically like, Thor and Loki, but also, like the surrounding mythology. And they had referred to it as, the surrounding mythology. And somebody kind of popped up and was like, hey, so this is a religion and it's mine and it still exists. So, there's just the way that we approach the concepts of mythology and these stories. I feel like there's a definite real world effect of things pass from being considered reality into mythology. And that can happen with the passage of time. It can happen, with colonization and a lot of other, issues that might also come up in this series occasionally. But we wanted to reflect that in a way where it was a thing. Ash, the hero from Consort of Fire, at one point in time was the belief in him has not waned, but it has changed. The stories about him started off describing him as a very protective figure. And over the years, they've changed. And now he is a figure of terror. And he has a real fight within himself, really. Because when you have a setting where reality reflects belief, how many people have to believe a thing before it literally becomes true? Is he still the same person? Or has he become the monster? And that's part of his story and his journey.
The only thing I would add is that like we purely practical world building thing is that we sort of thought, what if we take these common there's almost always a god of love. There's almost always a god of the hunt. There's almost always a god of this. And instead of like giving them complicated names, why don't we just have literally, make it this sort of the lover, the huntress? Like, they're not just people anymore. They have become the thing. And not only does that make it accessible, I think, to readers in a way that where they don't have to remember stuff as much, I also think it literally kind of shows how dehumanized they've become. They are just concepts to a lot of people. And that's what I think that we do to these gods. They become these just caricatures of the thing that they're supposed to represent. And that, like, exactly was what Donna was talking about. How long does it take for Ash to become a caricature of a monster? Because everybody thinks he is. Can he resist that or not? That's like the central question. And especially, he could resist it for a long time because he didn't have anything he felt very strongly about. But of course, in Consort of Fire, we introduce somebody that he wants to protect. And now, is he going to have to embrace this monster that they made him in order to do so? So that's the question for book 2.
Jenny and I have done a lot of, we wrote a book called Women of Myth about women in world mythology. And it's really fascinating what you're talking about because there's a commonality to these myths and stories, and some are still religions, and how you see these different gods and goddesses popping up, what their purposes are, how they function, and how their stories grow and change and encompass a lot of different things. And just hearing you talk about, they each become the thing. Jenny, do you remember Maya Dean's Wrath Goddess thing?
I sure do.
One of the things she did in that book was, she would refer to the gods and goddesses by like sort of their sacred animals. So like Hera was the cow god and Athena was the owl god. And she was doing something not exactly the same as yours, but similar in a way of like, this is how the story gets passed down. This is what they're associated with. This one causes this kind of trouble or that kind of thing. And it's just really interesting and fascinating to see carried on. I haven't seen that as much, and I really like it because it also really calls back to how we think about some of the Christian gods. Like, I'm just thinking, like, I grew up very Catholic. When you say the Holy Trinity, you've got the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost. Like, we've already stripped that out, even though it's sort of all the same person. Or you've got Mother Mary or Father Joseph, or, you've got all these archetypes as well.
Also things that could arguably be called mythology.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying. I'm just making that connection where they do become the thing. Like one person becomes the Holy Mother. You see it there, so we already do it with our modern religion. So it's great to see it sort of reflected in fantasy and causing you to sort of think about how and what you believe.
It is funny that you mentioned like the animal avatar aspects of like, associations with gods, because that's also a thing we wanted to do. Like we have an organization in the books called the Raven Guard, and they are literally like warriors reincarnated throughout time who basically like when they die in battle, they come back and become part of the guard. And so they're basically the greatest warriors of the sheltered lands. But we wanted to play with, we put ravens in everything, frankly, like with, these references, because they are everywhere. It seems like every single culture has venerated like these birds for varying reasons. Like either, they carry knowledge, they carry souls to the realm of the dead. So we tend to,
they're the Morgan.
Right. Like we tend to sort of associate them with, in one of our other series, the Gideon's Rider series, his riders, like the society they live in forbids the taking of a life. It's considered a stain on the soul for whatever reason, even if it's like a self-defense situation. And so these riders, these people, they sort of like are considered kind of like pre-damned. Like they accept this charge. Like they're going to be the people who do this, knowing that they're going to be damned forever because of it. And so every time they take a life, they get like a raven tattoo to commemorate it so that, they never forget what they've done. And so everyone, knows what they've done. The Raven Guard in this series, they literally can turn into an unkindness of ravens, either collectively or individually. And they do this like, on the battlefield. And it's a very like, I think we only really like tangentially like reference this like in the book. But like, think about that. Like, if you're fighting in battle and all of a sudden you see this, like, unkindness of ravens just like swoop down out of the sky and coalesce into these like immortal warriors, it's like, would you or would you not just poop yourself and die? I mean, I think that would be the end of me right there. I'd be like, well, I'm done. Like, I'm done. Like, or I don't know, maybe I would be very excited if they were on my side.
If they were on my side, sure, yeah. Did you say an unkindness of ravens? Is that the name for lots of ravens?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is the collective noun. I love collective nouns for animals, like murder of crows, unkindness of ravens, kaleidoscope of butterflies.
Yeah, we had to get that right because I'm a nerd. But yeah, like this is a thing that we wanted to play with. Our spirit of the forest, of the wilderness, is a wolf. He's the wolf. That's what he's called. Even though he literally is not just that. That's his avatar. He can be a giant wolf.
Hot.
Yeah, also very hot. I feel like there's something funny there. Like, have we ever discussed whether Ulrich the wolf, whether he was human at one point and became the wolf, or whether he was a wolf?
I have ideas about it, but I'm not telling anyone yet.
Okay, all right. Because most of the high court, the gods, the dreamers in the series, most of them were human and essentially became gods at some point. Like, Alexi's story is there was a big fire.
The ashes.
Oh, sorry, Ash. Sorry, I have Alexi on the brain because I might actually be writing a bunch of Alexi stuff right now. Sorry, not the lover, the dragon. Okay, Ash. Part of his backstory is that there was a big fire one day, and he, while battling this conflagration, he became the dragon. He was able to manipulate his elements of fire and earth to basically stop it from killing a bunch of people. But in the process, he was irrevocably changed. And most of them have stories like that. Alexi is an outlier because he was never human. He was born directly from the dream. And so it's been a lot of fun kind of like getting into his head, because Bree was talking about like how these people slowly become dehumanized and turned into, like their conceptual ideas. Nobody really thinks of Olivia as Olivia anymore. She's the huntress, but Alexi never was human. And so there's like a whole different experience there of, you don't have your humanity taken away because you never really had it. How does that affect you? Also, he has a whole different kind of belief behind him, like people start thinking Ash is a monster. Nobody thinks that Alexi's a bad dude, like everybody loves love, whether it's, something that is like, a romantic thing or a familial thing, or even just, friendship or love of the earth or of, oneself. It's always there. And so he doesn't have the same troubles. He has a different journey than, some of the other gods who were human and then became something else and are essentially slowly losing their humanity because people have forgotten it. Part of Ash's journey in Consort of Fire is being reminded of his humanity and like having people who see it in like, Sashi and Zanya, people who see that, he's not just the dragon, that he is also still Ash. He's still a person. So we definitely wanted to do a bunch of different things so that we could like explore different journeys through recovering that humanity, or maybe, it was never there in the first place. And so everyone's got a different way that their powers and their being affects them emotionally. And that's one thing that I feel can sometimes like fall by the wayside, is what would that be like to be a god, to have these powers, to be considered a god? It would be a bit trippy, I would think.
The way you'd view humanity would be completely different than like how we think, because Humans are like cats and dogs, right? Or maybe they're like ants, but they're not on the same level because you're not the same species.
And they live so fast.
Exactly. You're gone.
But we definitely wanted to play with that a little bit because I feel like there's either they stop meaning very much to you, humans, humanity in general, or it starts meaning more to you. And I feel like a thing we see a lot is it stops meaning anything to you. Like humans are ants. They are, basically like very, very short-lived animals. And we kind of wanted to take it in this different direction of like humanity suddenly like means so much more because it is fleeting. It is short-lived. It is something that's here and gone. And if you think about like the number of just like myths that basically absolutely just like glorify the concept of something that you've lost and can never regain. Like in the vampire myth, one of the big things is like, oh my gosh, I want to see a sunrise, like I just want to see a sunrise again, So I feel like that's a very human thing to do. It's a very human thing to essentially beatify things that are lost to you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you could be like, yeah, they don't mean anything, like they're here, they're gone. I barely even noticed, like I started talking to this guy on the street the other day, but no, it turned out it was that guy's grandson. Like I've lost all concept of time, but I also feel like, yeah, it could become something very precious.
And like there's an undercurrent of grief to that.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah, we're going to get into that too. Yay.
Also, like Ash's story is like inherently tragic because every 100 years they give him a little fragile human to love. And, it's one of those things where he had to decide if he could keep doing it, if he could keep loving them, because he just has to keep losing them. And then they start to come to him terrified of him, and it's just this, he has a hard setup. I was very mean.
I have to say one of my favorite parts of this book is that I love the part where, because like his consorts being sent to assassinate him is a thing that has definitely happened before. And there's this one in the past where there's like all these ballads about this guy like trying and failing to assassinate him.
Prince Robard.
Yes. And it's just like to the point where it's comical. And I was just like, that is so genius.
Poor Prince Robard. He tried.
And now he's a joke.
And it is funny because I thought that like the thing I thought was, why would he not be concerned if these women were sent to assassinate him? And we're back to the ants. I mean, they literally can't really be a threat to him. This guy trying to kill him, the idea that he had to spend more time trying to keep this guy from hurting himself in his assassination attempts because they're just so outmatched. He's so far beyond what a human can threaten. Which is why he's being a little cocky because he doesn't understand that he was just sent to weapons who might actually be able to hurt him.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Walmart Business saves you time, money, and hassle, which means you can focus on what really matters. Like putting the money you save back into what you do. Spending more time training your team, filling orders, and finding new clients. Anything and everything, right down to, oh, that's one, choosing the best hold music. Walmart Business. It's the Walmart you love, now for your business. Learn more at business.walmart.com.
No one hates history, they just haven't found the right teacher yet. Or in this case, a nerdy best friend who loves to tell you all about world history, women's history, and weird history. Hi, I'm TK, the creator of For the Love of History podcast, a place for people who want to learn more but don't know where to start, and history lovers who want to break from the mainstream. From rat trials to warrior women, we cover topics from every country and era. Whether you're a history expert or just starting out, there's a place for you here in the Time Machine. So join me every Friday on your favorite podcast podcast platform and YouTube for a brand new topic. See you there. Bye.
I would like to talk writing queer romance for a bit. In Consort of Fire, there are 3 protagonists, 2 women and 1 man, all lovers, all bisexual, and I would love to talk about your experience writing both queer and straight romance in the same book. If you would define, some elements of that romance as straight romance, which I'm not sure that if you do.
I wouldn't.
We tend to not call it straight romance, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't define it as straight romance because, somebody is still queer, even if they happen to have a partner, potentially still queer, even if they happen to have a partner who is of the opposite sex. And I feel like once you get multiple people in a relationship, any number greater than 2, I feel like that's one of those things that's just sort of like not really accepted as anything unqueer by our society. So, it's anything that's polyamorous is definitely queer by definition, I feel, no matter, who's zooming who, if you will. But yeah, no, they're all just queer. They're all very queer.
But the question is actually like super relevant to our history,
right?
Because we have been writing bisexual romance for 12 years now. 12 years, I think. And when we started, the romance was very divided into you were either writing heterosexual romance or you were writing male-male romance. And we had no idea what to do with our books where ladies kissed, but they also had sex with men because there wasn't a place. Like there was a Sapphic Island, like Lesbic Island over there, which was almost like separate from the whole thing. But like we couldn't go there either. And so we were like, okay, I guess we're just going to like publish this as if it's straight romance. We're just going to throw it out into the world and just be like, sorry, or not sorry. These are very bisexual people. And it was rough in the beginning.
Yeah.
What was the reception like in the beginning?
We got a lot of, I would say we got some just like absolute pushback. Like I will not read filth where women are kissing each other. That was not fun.
No.
And then there was like this 20% maybe. I don't know if you guys have seen the Community GIF. I hope this doesn't awaken something in me.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of those. And then I would say that we progressed to, this definitely awoken something in me. I would say that over the years, many people have attributed their bisexual awakening to these books, which is very big honor and cool. But it has been hard because it's the sort of thing where you write a book with a character. The second heroine in the Beyond series, we have 9 books. And I would say in like 8 of them, she has sex with women on the page. And then we have to deal with people calling her a straight heroine. And we're like,
that's definitely not that.
Yeah, her long-term partner is a man, but she continues to have sex with women for 6 more books on the page. Guys, do we have to call her straight?
Right. Stretches that definition quite a bit.
Yeah, so it's been a thing. It's been the bisexualness of it all is still a challenge.
Yeah, just the idea that if you're a woman and you have sex with a man, then you are automatically straight, regardless of if you also have sex with women.
And what's really interesting is that, Ash has absolutely had sex with men, but I feel like those same people who would call, a femme-presenting heroine straight for having sex with men really don't call him straight for having sex with women. It's like, it seems like, the fact that he also has sex with men, it's like, it seems like paramount, I feel like if we had written this book way back in the day, it would have been a whole different experience. But for the most part, people have been like, this is so great. People especially love this pre-existing relationship between Sashi and Zanya, and the fact that it doesn't go away. It doesn't get torpedoed by the circumstances of the book. It's, I don't feel like it's a spoiler to say they end the book as strongly in love with each other and committed to each other as ever.
Except for openly for the first time. So
right. So
And I will say, yeah, the 2023 response that we got to this book was like wholesome in a way that almost made me cry. Especially like all the Gen Z book talkers who were screaming, "Oh my God, my sapphic babies."
Aww.
You know, or like calling Zanya their shadow mommy. I was like, I'm so happy I can't handle this because it was so hard in the beginning. So we have made progress. And I love that for us and for readers, and just that this is, you know, Amazon Publishing put this book out, you know, when our second story we tried to write, an e-publisher told us you can't write a 2 women and a man because nobody will buy it because people don't want to see women together. And I was like, well, this sucks. I feel like we've triumphed over that woman a little bitterly and spitefully who told us that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, if you hadn't started indie publishing, we wouldn't have this genre almost, because everyone would be like, no, gatekeepy, like, this won't sell in New York.
Yeah.
I do think, like, you know, I mean, clearly we weren't the only ones, but I like to think that the fact that we were so successful and visibly successful with a series that was just aggressively bisexual did help in some ways to make people think, okay, well, there's money in this. And the one thing publishing loves is money, right? I mean,
absolutely.
So I like to think that we at least helped make that a little more normalized as okay, maybe we could take a chance on this.
I'm bisexual too, and I grew up reading romance that was extremely hetero and extremely monogamous.
Yeah.
So the idea of getting to read things that break that mold is just it's still very new to me. I mean, I've been reading romances that do this for a few years now, but it felt like so revolutionary. And I was like, this does not detract, like the poly aspect of it does not detract from the romance at all. And one of the things that I loved about your book was that moment when Ash says that he's not threatened by the 2 heroines' relationship, and he's like, in fact, like, that's something that makes him stronger in his feelings for them. And it was just like,
if you would like a clip of the audio narrator saying this in the dirtiest voice ever, I will send it to you.
Good Lord, yes, please.
Fuck yeah.
Can we put this in?
We have one. It is the top highlighted quote in the book. I am not some insecure human boy. And I have a clip of him saying it, which I put on Instagram, so this is not too spoilery. And I swear, it's like a 15-second clip, and I have like 7 hours of people viewing it so far.
Oh, good Lord. Well, we're putting it in right here. Get ready.
Prepare yourselves.
I am not some insecure human boy to feel threatened by my consort having another lover. If you want each other, then take her. Pleasure her well for me, Zanya. I'll enjoy feeling her come.
Hot. I need a shower.
So dirty.
We're gonna hose Jenny off, get her an ice bucket.
So dirty.
You know, the whole like polyamory and why choose. I'm very late to it, and it is one of my favorite things in the world now. But I do think, like, for a long time, as Jenny said, you know, romance, the genre in general, was very like about monogamy.
Yeah.
You know, you were with the one person, whoever that person was, whatever that gender or whatever, that was your person.
And that was billed as that's what love is.
Oh, there was a time period not that long ago when, like, the Romance Writers of America, the actual, like, RWA organization, was, like, trying to, like, pass rules saying that, like, romance was defined as like a relationship between one man and one woman. The GOP-ness of it all was wild.
I'm out.
I believe it was like 20 years ago, like almost exactly. I think it was like 2004-ish that they did this. Like,
which is not that long ago in the grand scheme of things, you know.
21st century.
What in the Mike Pence is that?
What in the Mike Pence? You could say that about a lot of the RWA stuff.
I've got friends who are poly. I've got like different people in my life, and I've never understood it until I really started reading YT's romances, and I was like, oh, that's what love could look like. I like that. That's not bad. And I think that's one of the reasons why romances and fiction in general are so important. They let you understand other ways of being that you don't necessarily know, because, I mean, at least for me, in the beginning, I was like, I don't know how that would work. And now I'm like, now I see how that works, and that is a wonderful thing.
Right. I feel like we didn't really have a choice with like this series with the High Court, because, going back to the humans are so fleeting thing, not saying that they can't have relationships with humans also might come up in the future. But when you think about the people that they're with, like century after century, it's, the rest of the High Court, it's the other gods, like this is their family in a way that like transcends so many concepts. Like, they're kind of like eternally stuck together. If they don't like, have a solid relationship with each other, then they're not gonna make it, like they're gonna be alone, So, I feel like we didn't really have a choice, like with them. Like they're definitely not going to be hung up on things that, our society in particular sees as like the usual or typical way of like doing things. It doesn't exist for them in the first place. In the second place, it's not practicable for them, I mean, like it's just not. But the thing that I really enjoy representing about polyamory as a concept, as a relationship ethos, is the communication of it all. Every polyamorous person I've ever known in my life has been so dedicated to the concept of like open and honest communication that it's like, I mean, that's really nice to see. It's really nice to see people who will talk about their feelings and not try to, repress or hide them. I mean, unless you have to, because you're there to assassinate someone and you can't just tell them that, I mean, like there's certain secrets you have to keep, but
To be fair.
Well, yeah, I mean, and nobody wants to be told that you're there to assassinate them. They just want to find out later on in a sexy mishap. It's fine.
Yeah.
That's one of those fraught miscommunications that perhaps drives the plot. I don't know.
But like, communication is so good. Like people talking about their feelings, people talking about their needs, like the things that they want, the things that they don't want. I feel like if you are really dedicated to the concept of like consent, polyamory should like, maybe it's not for you, but it should definitely make sense to you, because it's such a big part of, how these types of relationships function, that it's like, sure, like, hey, if that works for you, that is fabulous. And it definitely works for most of the High Court.
How do you deal with, or how do you contend with tropes like possessiveness or jealousy that sometimes crop up as like such an aspect of monogamous romance? Do you include those in your stories, or do you subvert them? And I know you subvert them in Consort of Fire, but other than that.
We have one book that's kind of infamous in the Beyond series, and it's called Beyond Jealousy. It is a love triangle turns into a triad thing. And like we had spent the first 3 books in the series building this love triangle between this woman and these 2 men. And then like in the 3rd book, the 2 men sort of crash into each other and it becomes this thing. And it is one time that we really did tackle jealousy, I think, because the 3 of them, they all had different dynamics, and there were ways in which each of them had something in common with the other person that the 3rd one couldn't share. And I think that is one of those places where it's really crops up as a dangerous situation, where it's like, those 2 have this thing that I'll never be able to be on their level with. So what if they don't want me? And this is something that we really dealt with. But we also dealt with the fact that like everybody kind of felt that way about something. And so it was fun. And I don't hate navigating it, especially since I think it's such a common thing. It's like, it's really rooted in insecurity, right? That this person is going to not want you and not love you because somebody else gives them more and they just don't need you anymore. And so exploring that was fun, but I also like sometimes just not having to worry about it. And I think Ash is, when you say something is rooted in insecurity, I don't think Ash knows what insecurity is most of the time.
Well, that's what's so sexy about it and so, like, perfect about subverting that trope that way. It's, like, actually, like, the more masculine stance is to be utterly at peace with all of this. And I use that word masculine because I wanted to lead up to talking about gender a little bit. And asking you guys, how do you play with gender in your books? And do you feel that there are some gender-specific tropes that are made to be broken or challenged?
I mean, the answer to that one is always yes. Anytime there's anything that could be called gender specific, I kind of look at it and I'm like, kind of want to turn that on its head. So, we did with a little bit of that stuff.
I think the most obvious one is that when we started, it was sacrificing a princess to the dragon, but we changed that to a consort. And they just send the oldest child, whoever it is. And Ash clearly is fine with that. And I'm deliberately trying not to say either gender, because we have a non-binary god of gender fluidity in this series, the Phoenix. So, but yeah, I think that, like Donna said, if we saw something, and our instincts are to gender things because we're storytellers who were raised on gender tropes. And so that was exactly what I did. I started writing this thing where every 100 years they have to send the princess. And I was like, no, let's not do princess. And let's not do a world where the king always rules. The eldest child can inherit. So we have queens and kings of the mortal land, not just kings. So we were trying to peel that stuff out, but there's always more to peel out.
Especially when you're talking about like working with sort of like mythological archetypes and tropes. It's like so many of those things are like highly gendered. So, I mean, we were kind of like, we made some like decided decisions. We were like, nobody's going to be shocked by seeing like a male god of like sexual love. But, if we roll like, fertility and like childbirth and stuff in there, it's going to be a little bit odd for people to see, but we're not going to make a separate person in charge of this. This is all like, Alexi's thing. And one of the things that we really tried to do with that was have that inform their characters. Like Dianthe, the siren, the god of the seas, of the wind, she's scary. Like, she's not a very warm person because if you think about like two elements that are not necessarily going to like be really like comforting and fuzzy, guess what? Water and wind are going to be those. So she's not like as a person, and extremely like she's fiercely protective of her people and all her little godlings that she has, because as established, all those sailors and superstitious fishermen means she's got a lot. She's very protective, but she's not really like it would have been really easy to kind of like turn her into sort of like an earth mother kind of figure. But no, we don't want to do that because she's not. Ash is the earth mother figure in this series, I mean, like the fierce dragon is also the protector of the earth, is also like the Gaia figure. So
like there's a huge nurturing side to Ash.
Yeah, we basically just kind of tried to, I mean, there were certain things we set on their heads. I was like, I don't want the god of the hunt to be a dude. Because number one, I feel like this is something that has, like a very strong basis in like historical mythology, is the hunt being a very kind of almost like a feminine energy. But also we're going to like we're going to make the huntress, we're going to make her Ash's greatest military general. She's got the intelligence. Like that's a big thing that she, she's kind of also like the spy master. So we wanted to simplify things and kind of pare them down. And so we just sort of like rolled together these concepts that seemed to make sense to us to exist kind of in the same people. I feel like that necessarily was something where we were kind of like playing with traditional gender tropes, because not all of these things you would necessarily think would go together. But we're like, well, guess what they do now? So.
And the witch is a fairly gendered trope, and we made her a woman, but she's like a mad scientist. So we gave her a little bit of something else too.
She is a literal mad scientist, yeah. So
yeah, she's just a kooky goth mad scientist.
Got a little Dr. Frankenstein thing going on too.
Yes.
Which is also a weirdly gendered thing, if you think about it.
Yeah, mad scientist, definitely like, big gendered thing. But you know what? That's Inga.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been so fun.
So, Donna and Bree, where can people find you online?
Well, our website is just kitrocha.com. Both of us have sort of faded from Twitter as it has gotten weird. We are on Blue Sky as mostly Bree and totally Donna. We also have an Instagram, author Kit Rocha. And I have been trying to get on Instagram more. You can find lots of dog pictures, along with the two main genres, dog pictures and dirty book quotes.
Okay, that's my ideal Instagram account. Yes, thank you. And Consort of Fire is out now. It is a sexy, wide shoes, polyamory love story of a dragon and two assassins. And if this conversation hasn't made you buy it, I don't know. You need to talk to someone.
And the second book, which finishes their story, comes out in August.
Go buy this book. It's incredible.
Thank you so much. And we will see you all when we see you next.